Hello everyone. Another short video today. It's nothing to do with any of my projects specifically, but I thought I would answer some of the questions I get from people, either in the comments or in chats or from friends and colleagues. One of the most common questions is, how do I find time to do all of this computer stuff, programming, electronics projects, YouTube? The answer is nighttime. It's 11:30 p.m. right now. I had a full day at work. I had dinner with my family. Tomorrow's my daughter's birthday, so I was also preparing her gifts, preparing her birthday card, and I also continued to work on her bedroom, the room I'm renovating. Not too much. I just sanded the plaster that I skimmed on the wall, or part of the wall, and applied some more, but really small effort today. So I think the answer to that is, if it's something you really want, you'll find time for it. And sure, I mean, myself included, there are moments I get lazy and I feel like I need time for myself and perhaps don't work on my hobbies. But I've always been kind of like this, even when I was in still doing my bachelor's. I would work weekends or mostly at night, predominantly at night. I've always been a night person, so I'm the kind of person who struggles to wake up, but I'm very productive in the evening. There are times I actually didn't go to bed and only realized I missed my chance to sleep when I noticed the sunlight in the morning. Next question is how to get started. How do I get into homebrew? What languages to learn? And to be honest, excuse me, I am probably sorry, the least qualified person to answer that question. And what do I mean by that? So I'm not a computer programmer by profession or by career related education. Yet programming has been something that's been part of my life for the majority of my life. So let me explain. So I work in the automotive industry. I've been working at the current company for over 13 years, I think, probably a bit more than that. And I'm good at my job, at least that's how I feel. I wouldn't say I'm the best. There are many talented people. You'll always find more talented people, but I'd say I'm pretty good at what I do. Um, and my bachelor is in motorsport engineering, which is kind of automotive slash mechanical slash aerospace. Before that, I was actually studying mechanical engineering in the University of Malta. I quit, did motorsports engineering. Um, while working, I did a master's in management, and I am now almost through my master's in computer science. And sorry, I have a sore throat. And in fact, I'm meant to finish my final project for the current degree. But so, even in this computer science course, many students actually work as web developers or front end developers, or they're doing the masters as a step up in their career. Again, I decided to do it because it's like, yeah, you see, I mean, most of the stuff behind me existed before I started the course. I'm a proper geek nerd. PlayStations, yeah, there's as many as you want. There are more in other boxes. Lots of toy cars. Here I got manga, car related. I got so many, physics and programming books. So I think it has to be something you like. If it's something you like, you'll want to do it, can do it, motivate yourself, and so on. But then people ask me what language to learn, what course to take, and so on. So this is the most difficult question for me, because basically I'm from Malta, and in Malta people speak, at least when I was living there, Maltese and English. They are the two official national languages. Everyone from the first year at school has to learn to speak both languages. Wherever you go, everything is written bilingually. The law is written bilingual. Every government website is bilingual. We are a genuine bilingual country. So, small side rant, in Germany, they keep bringing English education into the earlier years, then delaying it again in education because they think it's too much burden and they need to learn German fluently. Yeah, I don't know. I don't agree. I think kids at a young age can learn two languages. Having said that, I spoke in English in my household, in my parents' household, and I wasn't as good as Maltese in my younger years. But ironically, I could program in BASIC. So I spent a lot of time. So I had one of these, like, was it a Memotech? I think it's around from the era of the Sinclair Spectrum or the, what was it called? The C64, those kind of machines that when you boot up, it just said ready and a flashing cursor, and mostly you would type in BASIC, like 10 space print space open double inverted commas, hello world close inverted commas, and run. Weird kid. I spent most of my childhood programming just for myself, for fun, watching tutorials. And these are in the days of dial-up, so getting access to information was slow. Occasionally, I'd go to the library to get books to see what I can do. I remember, I think when I was 12 or something like this, I coded my own multi-equation solver. So it could solve 2 simultaneous equations, 3 simultaneous equations. I mean, stuff that, again, today is not so impressive. You can do it on your smartphone, but back then, it's not that far ago, you needed special calculators to have that function built in. So I was doing this for fun, that's school boring. I loved maths, I loved matrices, I loved physics, and I loved computer science. So yeah, let me show you some of the stuff I did to give you a sort of sense of the orientation I had. So if I share my screen, yeah. So this is one of my earliest school projects in 2002. So this is secondary school. So that's like the mandatory school at which you're meant to finish at the age of 16 in Malta. So actually, this is a scan of my assignments or final project submission. So we had to make something in BASIC or QBasic, QuickBasic. And specifically for me, my professor or my lecturer gave me and another student further restrictions than the other students. We had to make a video game. It had to be in less than 2 pages of code, and we couldn't use graphics commands. And again, here you see that my programming and car enthusiasm coming together, because I kind of tried to make a drag racing game using ASCII text. So yeah, very cheesy. I still was already calling myself NDR008 or Nader 008. It kind of worked like this. You had what looked like a center strip road markings, the sides, and it's meant to be first perspective. You'd have different objects on the side of the road made from O's or N's, and you saw them grow as they got closer to you. So this is kind of sprite scaling, but using ASCII characters. So here you could see these O's, for example, further away, and as they got closer, they filled a matrix or a grid of growing size. In reality, the size I think was fixed, and I just had space bars, space characters, and I used small O's to taper the edges. And I had implemented some kind of winning-losing concept. You had to shift gears. When you kept the engine in the red, over the red line, you were just having a probability of blowing the engine, and this probability wasn't fixed. It was partially randomized because that's real life. You could get lucky. You could, late shift a whole drag race and get lucky and not blow the engine, and sometimes, you might be unlucky in the first time you have trouble. So yeah, this was my project. It tracked what was your quarter mile time, your top speed. At the time I didn't like try to validate that they are sensible numbers because this was a university project. It's my first encounter, or one of my first applications of the GPL license, because it was also the days I started to get into Linux, which again was a really nerdy and more convoluted thing to install on a PC back then. Yeah. 2 years from this, sixth form college. So this is in Malta, the ages from 16 to 18, pre-university. Had a web design project. Again, surprise, surprise, they made my web design assignment. It was a multimedia assignment, so mostly I talked about how I made the graphics or made the artwork, but I made it for the sake of a website. And surprise, surprise, the website was about cars. It was the Toyota Sprinter Cielo because I had this car, or as I knew I was going to have this car. And yeah, and it was one of these websites I totally coded HTML. It's not the sort of HTML you're going to find these days, but it was HTML. It used frames. I think no one who's cool uses frames today. It was minimalistic. I used text for links back then. Flash was the rave of the day, and big widgets and animations, very annoying. Yeah. So then, before moving on to this was another project I did back then. So I also had to do a coding project that wasn't websites or graphics. And I did something in Pascal. So Pascal was the language we had to use. And I was at the time experimenting with OpenGL. Nothing complicated, sprites and cubes. But it was fun. It was application of matrices that I was, matrix algebra. Sorry if you can hear this noise in the background. My printer decided to start cleaning its head. So yeah, and I don't know what is this strain-based dynamics. I think this shouldn't be here. Yeah, let's go there. So it's written in Pascal. It's functional, as in procedural functions oriented programming. It's not object oriented, but it was cool. Those days OpenGL is like wow, and doing it in Pascal is like a little bit more challenging. Nothing mind-blowing. Select a resolution. I had a very stupid pointless for loop timer to slow things down, not the way I would do things today. And yeah, you had this thing which you could make translucent, and this is meant to represent a 4-cylinder combustion engine. So green is an intake stroke, so this piston would be coming down. When it goes back next back up, it would turn orange to represent compression, red coming down to represent the power stroke, and blue to represent the exhaust stroke. So I could rotate it. There is fog, which you could, I think you could, no, you couldn't. So yeah, you could pause the rotation somehow. Yeah, there we go. You could make the animation continue. You could speed up the animation or slow it down, or the rotation, I can't remember. But anyway, so you can see the 4 strokes is referring to. So this was also fun for me on the viewpoints as applying different fragments of knowledge. We had just learned the 4-stroke cycle in physics. I had been learning 3D algebra and matrices, programming, bring it all together. And I think that's the point, the next point I'd make. using every opportunity you have to your advantage to pursue the goal you have. Which probably takes me to the next topic. My undergrad, my bachelor's degree, I was really into combustion. I was still into programming. I had been experimenting with microcontrollers, OpenGLs. I mean, this is a rush summary. I also did, some MIRC scripting and other things, with the highlights. So for my final project in my bachelor's, I did a model-based engine efficiency. So using physics models and numerical models, I modeled combustion to predict in-cylinder pressure. So I start from easy idealized Otto cycles and work my way up to the intricate details of combustion, the chemistry, used iterative methods to reduce the error in my simulation, applying the Newton-Raphson method, modeling flame propagation for both compression and spark ignition engines. And yeah, I implemented it in MATLAB, made a GUI for it. So this is an example. The red representing a real PV diagram of actual measured engine. The blue was a simulation. After applying some optimization, some iterative approach, you can see it further accurately predicts the cylinder pressure. There were things I didn't finish, so of course it's a university project and it becomes your conclusion and further thought and blah blah blah. Yeah. Now as I said, I'm doing my computer science degree at the University of Bath. Whether I recommend it or not is a whole other can of worms. So it's a university a master's course. So there are many assignments, and again, if your goal is to pass, it's not going to help you in your goal of programming. If you try to ace it, I don't think it's going to help you so much in your goal of programming. But if you do such a course, I think you should want to try and get the best grade. Not with the intention of making the grade your goal, but to challenging your limits. So, for example, we had some assignments on developing an AI agent that is rule-based to solve Sudoku. You can use brute force methods to pass. You cannot do that to get a good grade. We had an assignment to make a spam filter. You could use certain methods, the Baynes method. I hand-coded my own neural network in Python. And actually this turned to be helpful for future modules on AI because neural networks and how the several functions like softmax and loss functions and the biases and the effect of their the randomness of their initialization all made sense because you had to go through the hard work of trying to hand code it yourself. So yeah, I mean, I have some of these repositories are private for obvious reasons because actually people did plagiarize my work. Yeah, so this is, I think, the one of the neural networks that I was talking about that I hand coded in Python. It's unfortunately all in a notebook, but here you go. I have a forward function, a backward function, get predictions function. Yeah. What else did I do? So this is probably the most useful advice I'm going to give you. Not that I'm someone worth hearing the advice on programming. The best course I've did, considering the gap in my career, to catch up with hardcore programming again, or hardcore is the wrong word here, strong foundational programming skills in C. And why C is because that's the language I always wanted to learn and I always put off. I have books behind me, such as this is a well-known book. I totally recommend it as a reference. Um, this C programming language by Brian and Dennis. So, and most of these like 32-bit era games were some of the first game consoles where developers used C. Some people I think use C++, but C was the baseline. C was abstracting way beyond assembly at the time, and programmers actually I think struggled to not think in assembly, not trying to think how the hardware compiler will work. And yet they're not as simple as making a game today in Unity or with one of the game engines. Not that it's easy, I don't know how to do it, but we'll get to that. It's challenging. So I did this CS50 course. And okay, week 0 looks a bit boring if you know a thing or two in Scratch, but basically I so totally recommend this guy's course, David Mallon. So every year he re-records these lectures. They're highly interactive, highly high pace. The course is for free. You, I think, can even get a free certificate. You can also apply for a paid-for certificate with verification and so on. You can download the slides of the lecture. You can download the source code, and you have assignments to do. And I don't know the way the course is set up these days, but back then, let's see, back then, I mean, it's 2 years ago, sometimes you had 2 assignments, as in an easy one and a hard one. So let's see. Data structures. Maybe this was one of those. Problem set 5. Problem set 5. Okay, there seems to be only one. Anyway, so I totally recommend this course. It's not entirely C-based. So here you see we have a little bit of HTML. There's some SQL. There's some Python. There's some Python-based websites using Flax. However, I honestly believe the algorithms explained here, some of the basics, foundations of computer hardware, wasn't all new to me, but is ironically really important stuff to, in my opinion, say you're a computer scientist, which the University of Bath doesn't cover. And my master's in computer science at the University of Bath is intended for people without a computer science background. So, bizarre. I finished this course, and again, on the topic of using every opportunity to your advantage, I actually made, let's see if we find it. So you have a final project you have to submit. It's trust-based predominantly, but let's see, is it here? I made a PlayStation 1 game in C. It's a breakout game, no sound. A lot of self-learning. I needed help from the PSX dev community, but it used a lot of the skills I got from the course. I had to think and implement my own edge detection for the ball collision and so on. And there's a lot of hacky code in there, but again, it motivated me to finish it. Harvard also does a game development course, which you can also do for free, which I'm also enrolled in. I'll be honest, I haven't finished it. So I've done Pong, I've done Flappy Bird, I've done Breakout, I've done Match 3, and I think I've started Super Mario Bros. But not finished it. Again, it's really good. So I made the Pong for the PlayStation, and I implemented this collision detection. It was very refreshing to see. I was not far off from what's the recommended way of doing things, because we covered that. I made a Flappy Bird kind of game for a game jam. So that's another thing you can do. And again, a game jam, I'm a working guy, I have kids, and I crammed, the working on a short window game jam, which was meant to be 32-bit, 2-bit style games. So most people used Unity and fudged the graphics to make it look 32-bit. And again, respect to them, I cannot do that. But I actually went hardcore in the sense of I made a genuine 32-bit retro game. And this is a short clip from it. So Buzzy Bee, I didn't make it on my own. So the soundtrack is from one of the co-developers. You can go and check out the page on itch.io. Someone helped with the graphics, but I did most of the coordination, the engine, and the submission. Someone also helped with the 32-bit logo you saw at the beginning. So again, the physics implemented here are very similar to Flappy Bird, the mechanics. And again, that CS50 game dev course, totally worth it. The CS50 course for game dev is predominantly in Lua, a scripting engine, which comes to another question. People ask me, how am I doing all this PSX dev activity? I'm doing this reverse engineering in Gran Turismo. I don't know if you can say I'm doing well. I'm at the surface. I'm using Lua, I'm using Python, I'm using my knowledge of very rough knowledge or limited knowledge on the PlayStation hardware, some C code. It all comes together. And it's, again, for me, maximize every opportunity in the direction you wish to pursue. Yeah, I think that's it. There's no simple way to get into things other than just get into it. And people always think about a very complex first project. Hello World is it's underrated and a cliche, but you have to start somewhere. And then make something simple. Implement a calculator that can only do addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. Try to code a rotation 13 encryption. Just start to do things that get you familiar with things. And if it's like many other skills. If you don't continue to utilize those skills, you'll start to forget a bit, and it will be slightly slower, but similar to riding a bicycle. Each time you get back on, your muscle memory starts to kick in. But it all depends on how much you exercised it for memory retention through practice. Yeah, I think that's all I had to say. It's a long video for some video that doesn't tell you or show any progress, but it's kind of my short advice, experience. What I would have done differently perhaps is worth to wrap on is I wish I continued programming more intensively. I genuinely think programming is a skill set that you're going to need for any job in the future. I mean, the automotive we see all the time. It's software vehicles, the platforms, the hardware. So I used to work in engine management systems. There was still a lot of dedicated hardware, custom CPUs, and so on. This is similar to mobile phones. No one's making, or let's say not no one's too extreme, but you don't have so much dedicated hardware like in the days of the Nokia 3310. You don't have dedicated vendor-specific OSs like you had for the Sony Ericssons, and you had the Windows CE on the Microsoft mobiles. Now, there's a layer of abstraction, Android, and the apps are on top of Android, for example. So a lot of it is becoming like that, and perhaps for me, nostalgically, it does mean that a lot of people, like on my master's degree, will never be thinking about the memory stack, memory allocation, CPU cycle, instruction counter, or instruction pointer, and so on. But nevertheless, everyone in every job is programming or going to require people who can code, who can program, and who can think systematically at problem solving. So still, I wouldn't say being a programmer is the only skill you have to try and seek. But it's one of the tools I think society is going to expect you to have, in the same way you're expected to read and write and do basic math. Hope this video is helpful for someone. Hope you have your views. If you think I'm an idiot, leave some comments below. Subscribe. I think this video is like a one-off. I'm gonna mostly keep it on topic to something related to PSX, cars, or pizza, as the handle says. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.